It was around December of last year when my brother Teddy disappeared. At the time, we were in Busan, South Korea, visiting my mom's side of the family. It took about a week for us to get used to the change in time zone and get some semblance of good sleep. But anyways, we were about 8 days into our trip when my brother disappeared. We were staying up late and drinking as usual, and we were at a bar just socializing with a few of my brother's acquaintances from the area. At around 3:30, which was a bit later than we would usually stay up, we decided to go home. Our house was only a few city blocks away from the bar at which we were drinking, so we decided to walk home as usual. This area of the city was known for crime, so as always, I had my trusted hunting knife ready to use at a moment's notice. As we walked home, a sudden urge to urinate overcame me, so I told my brother to wait as I went into an alley to relieve myself. Well, he insisted that he would just walk slower so that I could easily catch up with him, and I said this was fine. When I returned from the alley around 2 minutes later, my brother was nowhere to be seen. I searched around that area and called out his name, but to no avail. So I just decided to continue walking home and convince myself he'd just gone home as quickly as possible in order to prank me into thinking he'd gone missing. Well, this made sense to me, as my brother was always a bit of a prankster. As I walked home, I sensed a strange feeling in the air that made the hairs on the back of my neck tingle. This felt like the dense fog surrounding me had suddenly become electrically charged. There was a faint smell of burning rubber. I ignored this, however, and persisted, arriving home after just a few more minutes of walking. As I entered the house, I quietly trod around as to not wake up my mum and her sisters, as I did a quick look into the bathroom for signs of my brother. There were no signs of him anywhere, not even in our room. I decided to go to sleep anyway, opting to do some digging and, if necessary, notify authorities in the morning. In hindsight, this wasn't a very good decision when your brother has disappeared, but I was quite drunk at the time and decided I needed some sleep. I awoke at about 1:30 in the afternoon the following day, feeling very hungover. I was very pleased to see my brother put his shoes on as he normally would in the morning. I asked where he'd gone yesterday, and he said he had no recollection of last night. This made sense to me, as he was much more of a drinker than I was at the time. One thing I began to notice right away was that my brother was much more withdrawn and quieter than normal, which was very odd given his usually upbeat and exuberant demeanor. I chalked this up to a combination of jet lag and being hungover from our nightly drinking. After a few weeks, though, I really started to take note of this. It was very uncharacteristic of him, so this gave me lots of anxiety. Whenever I'd interrogate him about it, he'd say that he's fine and act as though nothing had changed in his personality. My family, however, have not been as concerned by these changes, especially our dad, who's been very happy about my brother's recent loss of his usual childish antics and newfound conformity. In the weeks that followed, we returned to our home in Portland. This is when I began to notice some more changes in his behavior that were really disturbing, to say the least. The first episode of this I noticed while we were eating japchae, a Korean dish my mum likes to make. He was having great difficulty figuring out how to use utensils, as if he was some kind of alien life form trying to imitate a human. This wasn't the only incident of this kind of strange behavior, and I've seen him become very confused by other household objects, such as the TV remote and his iPhone, although he did eventually figure out how to work the latter. Now we come to the reason I'm writing this. The incident that happened on Tuesday, 5 nights ago. I was really concerned with my brother's behavior at the time, as he'd spent upwards of 45 minutes in the bathroom. As I peeked through the crack in the door, I was horrified by what I saw. My brother's face was completely removed, and it was resting on the counter right beside him. I could see under his face through the reflection in the mirror, and it was truly mortifying. His face looked to be made out of some strange kind of alien technology. It was like nothing I'd ever seen before. His face was bolted onto his skull by several oddly shaped screws and bolts. This machinery seemed to be somewhat organic in nature and had patches of pale, pulsating tissue placed intermittently throughout it, with some thick blue fluid obscuring certain parts of his face. His face seemed to be comprised of around 75% machinery and 25% of organic tissue. At this moment, he had some kind of strange tool in his hand and was using it in the mirror to seemingly repair his face. I panicked as I saw this disturbing imagery, and I decided to knock in a fit of panic. It turned back to face the door as it said, "I'll be out in a moment," in a very unsuspecting voice. I went back into my bed and began to drink some liquor that had been left out from the previous night, as I stared off into the corner of the room and quietly sobbed. In about 15 minutes, my supposed brother exited the bathroom with no signs of having just removed his face. In my inebriated state, I decided to confront him. Normally when I confronted him about his strange behavior, he would casually wave this off and act like nothing strange was going on. However, this time was very different from that. I mustered up some courage and made the very bold decision to say, "I know you're not human, Teddy." He instantly sprung up from his seated position and became enraged. He picked me up by the back of my neck, and in retaliation, I stabbed him in the shoulder and neck with my hunting knife. In response, he flung me across the room with an extreme amount of force. As he slowly marched toward me, I quickly fled the scene, got into my car and drove off. I've been living out of my car in the days that followed, having to drink absurd amounts of alcohol to stave off my newfound anxiety. My only source of entertainment are the internet cafes that can be found around here in this area of Michigan. I've spoken to my parents, and they're none the wiser. I've decided not to tell them about this incident yet, though, because I know there's no way they would believe me. I did ask my mum if she'd noticed anything strange, and she said that a large number of government officials had been seen around the area. Hey there. Thank you so much for taking the time to drop by and listen to this story today. It really means a lot to me. I put a lot of time and effort into making these videos, so it's nice to know that there's someone out there listening. Do me a little favor, would you? Click that like button, leave a comment, and if you really feel like it, why not subscribe too? Okay, happy tales everyone. See you soon.